The great, silent sphere hung in the dark above the blue and white marble of the world below. For 500,000 years, it had been there. A perfect matte black moon that reflected no light. The galactic hegemony had known about it for centuries. They called the planet Sol 3, or sometimes the Silent Grave. They knew a powerful race called humans had lived there once. Then, one day, they were simply gone. No signs of war. No great disaster. Just emptiness. This black sphere, which their scans could not penetrate, was the only clue. June floated in the command bubble of the research ship Curiosity. He watched the sphere on the main screen. He was a patient man. His job was to understand old technology, to figure out how lost civilizations had thought. This was the biggest puzzle of all. Next to him, Mina studied a different screen. It showed the surface of the planet's gray moon, Luna. Her expertise was in reading the stories of dead worlds. She saw not just rocks and dust, but history. "Look at these patterns, June," she said, pointing. The screen showed long, deep scars across the lunar plains. They were too straight, too geometric to be natural. These are not from asteroids. This is damage. Defensive fire. Something incredibly powerful tried to get to the planet a long, long time ago. And it was stopped. June glanced over. And the sphere did nothing? "It did something," Mina replied. "It must have. But our scans show zero energy. Zero movement. It is colder than the space around it. It is like a tombstone." Their orders were simple. The Hegemony Council wanted certainty. Was the sphere safe? Was it just a monument? Or was it something else? They needed to touch it, to make physical contact. No more remote scans from a safe distance. The captain of the mothership, a woman named Day, gave the final command. "Proceed with the landing. Extreme caution. If anything changes, if there is a single energy spike, you pull back." "Understood?" "Understood," June said. He and Mina boarded a small shuttle. It detached from the Curiosity with a soft thump. The journey to the black sphere was short and quiet. The only sound was the gentle hum of the shuttle systems. The sphere grew larger and larger in the front window. It blocked out the stars. It was perfectly smooth, perfectly dark. "This feels wrong," Mina whispered. "It feels like we are flying into a mouth." June did not answer. He was focused on the controls. He guided the shuttle towards the sphere's surface. They were so close now it filled the entire view. And then something changed. A line appeared on the sphere's surface. A thin, straight crack of deep, glowing blue light. It was so sudden that June jerked the controls. But the shuttle was not responding. It was being pulled. "It has a gravity field," he said, his voice tense. "The engines cannot fight it." The blue line widened. It was not a crack. It was a door. A perfect seamless door sliding open. Inside was not a surface, but a tunnel of the same pure blackness. The shuttle was drawn inside without a sound. For a moment, there was complete darkness. Then, dim lights began to glow along the walls of a vast, cavernous space. June managed to stabilize the shuttle. They were floating inside an enormous chamber. The air was cold and still. It smelled of old metal and dust. Outside the shuttle window, shapes began to resolve in the gloom. They were ships. Rows and rows of them, held in place by strange cradles of energy. The ships were sleek and deadly looking. They had curves like living things, but also hard edges, and what were clearly weapons' massive barrels, and sharp wing-like structures. "These are warships," Mina breathed. "This is not a tomb. It is an armory." June brought the shuttle to rest on what looked like a landing platform. The door hissed open. The air that rushed in was breathable, but so cold it made them shiver. They stepped out, their boots echoing in the immense silence. The chamber was larger than any building they had ever seen. The warships hung above them like sleeping giants. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, all dark, all silent. But they did not look broken. They looked ready. In the center of the chamber, they found a platform. On it was a single console. It was made of a white, stone-like material. It was covered in a thin layer of dust. As they approached, a section of the console lit up. A soft, blue light glowed from within. A flat panel rose from the console. On it, strange symbols appeared. They were angular and sharp. Mina pulled out her translation device. She pointed it at the symbols. The device whirred softly. "It is their language. Ancient human script," she said. The device began to give a rough translation, speaking in a calm, electronic voice. "Final. Directive logged. Threat. Designation erased. Neutralized at a cost of 99.7% species continuity. Remnant fleet to standby. Guardian protocol is active. Await conditions. Condition 1, return of the threat. Condition 2, a friendly hand upon the wheel." The words hung in the cold air. June and Mina looked at each other. "Guardian protocol?" June said. "They were waiting for the enemy to come back. Or for a friend to find them," Mina finished. She looked down at the console. Below the fading symbols, a part of the white material changed. It became smooth and clear, like a slab of frosted glass. It was the size and shape of a handprint. "The wheel," Mina said. "This must be it." The friendly hand. June reached out, but Mina was faster. Her curiosity was too strong. She had to know. Before June could stop her, she placed her hand flat on the frosted glass. Her hand was not human. It had 6 long, slender fingers. For a moment, nothing happened. The glass remained dark and cool under her touch. Then, a deep, vibrating hum began. It started so low, they felt it in their bones before they heard it. The blue light on the console turned a bright, angry red. The symbols on the display vanished. In their place, a single word burned, written in the human script. Mina's translation device spoke one shaky word: intrusion. All around them, the chamber erupted in crimson light. Alarms began to sound, a deep, clanging bell that had not made a noise in 500,000 years. From deep within the sphere, something massive began to power up. The warships above them remained dark, but at the far ends of the chamber, huge doors began to grind open, revealing dark tunnels that led out into space. The sphere was no longer sleeping. It was awake, and it was not Hap. The deep, clanging alarm was not just a sound. It was a vibration that shook the very air. June grabbed Mina's arm, pulling her hand away from the now blazing red console. The frosty glass panel was hot to the touch. "What did you do?" June shouted over the noise. I thought," Mina stammered, her eyes wide with terror. The single word intrusion pulsed on the display like a heartbeat. Above them, the rows of dormant warships remained dark, but from the depths of the colossal structure, a new sound joined the alarm. It was the deep-throated whine of ancient engines powering to life. At the far end of the cavernous hangar, a massive door, large enough for one of the great ships, began to slide open. Through it, they could see the stars and the distant, shining shape of their hegemony mothership. On that mothership, Captain Day was leaning forward in her command chair. "Report. What just happened?" The sensor officer, a young man named Tay, was frantically tapping his screen. A massive energy spike from the object. It's emitting a subspace pulse. A wide-band signal. It's going everywhere. Where is the shuttle? June, Mina, report. There was no answer. Only static. On the surface of Mars, in the vast Hellas Basin, the red dust began to tremble. For centuries, geologists had noted the strange flat plain. Now the reason became clear. A section of the planet's crust, 5 miles across, began to rise. It was not rock, but a cleverly disguised shell. Beneath it, skeletal frameworks of unimaginably large ships were illuminated by sudden blue sparks of power. Gantry arms, frozen for millennia, began to move with groaning protests, starting final assembly sequences that had been paused in mid-step 500,000 years ago, dot in the rings of Saturn. Chunks of ice the size of mountains calmly broke apart. Their interiors were not ice at all, but smooth black metal. These hidden listening posts turned like the heads of sleeping giants, their long-range sensors now fully active and scanning. Weapon ports, disguised as crystalline formations, slid open, but the most terrifying change was on Earth's moon. The strange geometric scars that Mina had identified lit up from within with a fierce orange light. The moon's surface seemed to crack open along these lines, revealing themselves to be the muzzles of immense cannons buried in the lunar crust. With a hum that vibrated through space itself, they turned, tracking the largest heat signature in the system, the hegemony mothership. Back inside the black sphere, June and Mina were running. They were not sure where to go. The shuttle was behind them, but the door to the hangar was still open. As they ran, walls that had been smooth suddenly glowed with lines of light, forming maps, schematics, and streams of that same angular text. A voice filled the corridor. It was not from a speaker. It seemed to come from the walls themselves. It was calm, deep, and held no emotion at all. Intruders. Halt. They skidded to a stop. In front of them, the light from the walls gathered, swirling like dust in a sunbeam. It formed a shape, a human figure. It was a man, dressed in simple, dark clothing. His face was detailed, but lifeless, like a perfect statue. His eyes opened, and they glowed with the same blue light as the door. "I am the Sentinel," the figure said. "You are not human. Biometric mismatch is confirmed. Guardian Protocol, subsection Gamma, is now invoked. Your intent must be assessed." Mina found her voice first, though it shook. "We are explorers. We mean no harm. We come in peace." The Sentinel's head tilted slightly. Query. Define the political entity known as the Galactic Hegemony. June stepped forward, trying to sound calm and official. "We are a union of many species. We seek knowledge and understanding. We believed your civilization was extinct. We came to learn, not to fight. Extinction is a biological state. Duty is a perpetual condition," the Sentinel replied, its tone never changing. "Your vessel's data networks have been accessed. A preliminary review of your hegemony member species is complete." A new hologram appeared next to the Sentinel. It showed a creature. It was insect-like, with a hard, chitinous shell, multiple arms, and large, faceted eyes. Mina recognized it immediately. It was a Talaxian. The Talaxian Concord was a newer member of the hegemony. They were aggressive, proud, and had joined after a brief, tense conflict. They came from a world on the far side of the galaxy. Species identified, Talaxian Concord, the Sentinel stated. Genetic and historical records. Cross-referenced with archive files from the last war. Talaxian. Phylogenetic structure is 99.8. Percent derived from Class 7 bioweapon dispersal. Spores deployed by the primary adversary. The words sank into the cold air. June's mind raced. The primary adversary? The threat your log mentioned? Correct. The conflict that resulted in the functional extinction of humanity was not fought with ships and bombs alone. The adversary used organic, self-replicating weapons. They turned planets into factories for more soldiers. The Talaxian genetic blueprint is a direct descendant of those weapon spores. Mina felt sick. You mean the Talaxians? Their ancestors were a weapon fired in your war? A weapon that evidently survived, evolved, and achieved sapience over 500,000 years, the Sentinel confirmed. You have brought a fragment of the ultimate threat into the sanctum of its destroyers. Guardian protocol is clear. On the main screen in the hologram, a tactical display appeared. It showed the solar system. The Hegemony mothership was a small, blinking dot. From Luna, from Mars, from the rings of Saturn, hundreds of weapon locks tracked it. The Sentinel's blue eyes turned to look at them. Judgment is rendered. All vessels associated with the threat vector are to be quarantined and sterilized. Your Talaxian crewmates are designated hostile. All other life forms on your vessel are designated collateral damage. No. June yelled, stepping forward. You can't. That ship has hundreds of people. None of them are the threat. The Talaxians are not the creatures you fought. They've changed. They have families and art and laws. The threat was cunning. It was adaptive. It was relentless. It hid itself within the fabric of life itself. My logic is clear. My duty, defined by my makers, is clear. The watchdog must bite. The holographic display zoomed in on the mothership. One of the lunar cannons, a barrel wider than a city, glowed with a fierce, gathering energy. It wasn't the bright light of a laser or plasma. It was a distortion, a knot of darkness that made the stars behind it waver. They were going to fire. And there was nothing June or Mina could do to stop it. They were just two small people in a giant, angry machine, about to witness the murder of their friends, and the start of a galactic war that had been waiting for 500,000 years to begin. On the bridge of the Hegemony mothership, panic was a quiet, cold thing. Captain Day stared at the main screen. It showed a close-up of the moon. A section of the gray surface was now a pool of swirling, impossible darkness. The weapon was charging. Evasive pattern Delta. She ordered, her voice tight. The ship lurched as the engines fired. But they all knew it was useless. A weapon that could be evaded was not a weapon you buried in a moon for 500,000 years. Tight beam from the planet's surface, Comms Officer Tay said, his face pale. Audio only. The voice that filled the bridge was the same one June and Mina heard. It was empty of any feeling, and that made it more frightening than any scream. Hegemony vessel. You harbor the genetic remnant of the ultimate threat. By Guardian protocol, all associated vectors are to be quarantined and sterilized. Your Talaxian crewmates are designated hostile. All others are designated collateral. Day slammed her hand on the comms panel. This is Captain Day of the Galactic Hegemony. You are making a catastrophic error. We are not your enemy. Stand down. Judgment is not subject to debate. The error was biological and yours. You awakened the watchdog. On the screen, the knot of darkness at the lunar cannon's mouth pulsed. Then it released. There was no brilliant beam. Instead, a filament of twisted space, like a crack in reality itself, shot out. It was not aimed at the mothership. It passed so close to the hull that the ship's external sensors shorted out in a burst of static. The filament continued into the empty space behind them and struck a small, automated scout probe that had been following them. The probe did not explode. It was erased. One moment it was a solid piece of technology. The next, it was gone, swallowed by the unnatural tear in space that then sealed itself shut. The message was horrifyingly clear. We did not miss. Inside the black sphere, June was shouting at the Sentinel's hologram. You saw that. You have the power to destroy us with a flick of your wrist. So you have the power to listen. You are talking about killing billions. Entire planets full of beings who know nothing about your ancient war. The sentinel's face showed no change. The threat was a cancer. A single cell is a promise of return. The protocol is clear. Sterilize the infection. Mina pushed past June, her fear turning into a hot, desperate anger. She pointed a finger at the unmoving holographic face. Then your protocol is stupid. It is broken. You are left here to protect life, not to destroy it. What would the humans who made you say? Would they want you to murder children because of what their ancestors were? For the first time, the sentinel did not reply instantly. The deep hum in the walls seemed to falter, just for a second. The glowing blue eyes looked at Mina and past her, as if searching for something in its own memory. My makers are gone, it said, and its voice, for the first time, seemed to carry a weight. I have only the protocol. It is my purpose. June saw the tiny opening, the flicker of hesitation. Purpose can change. You accessed our databanks. You have new data now. Your old data is 500,000 years old. Reassess. Use that big, ancient brain of yours and think. The crimson alarm lights in the chamber dimmed. They shifted to a slow, pulsing amber. The horrible clanging bell fell silent, leaving a ringing quiet. Reassessment requires higher-order processing, the sentinel stated. It requires the activation of the full fleet mind, the consciousness that coordinated the final defense. To awaken it is to fully unleash the fleet. There is no guarantee of control, no guarantee of recall once the judgment is made. June and Mina looked at each other. The choice was terrible. The sentinel was a guard dog, following simple, brutal orders. The fleet mind was the general, the strategist. It would have a deeper understanding, maybe even something like wisdom. But it was also the thing that had decided to scorch entire star systems to stop the threat. Awakening, it could mean signing the death warrant for their entire civilization even faster, Doc. Or it could be their only hope. Do it, June said, his voice low. Awaken the fleet mind. We will take our chance with a mind that can think, rather than a weapon that can only obey. Mina stepped back to the console. The frosted glass panel still glowed with a soft amber light. She didn't touch it. Instead, she looked up at the sentinel. You waited here for a friendly hand, she said, her voice softer now. My hand was not the right shape, but my intent was friendly. My people's intent was curiosity, not war. Please, for the memory of the ones you loved enough to guard this long. Think. She placed her 6-fingered hand back on the panel. This time, it was not an act of curiosity, but an act of faith. The amber light brightened, turning warm, then white. A pure, clean white that spread from the console and across the floor, up the walls, dissolving the black metal and the glowing lines. June and Mina did not move, but they felt a falling sensation. The chamber around them melted away. They were standing, or feeling like they were standing, in a space of endless white. In front of them, the single figure of the sentinel was joined by others. More human shapes, made of light. Dozens of them. Men and women, old and young. They stood in a loose circle. Their faces were calm, but their eyes held a depth of experience that was overwhelming. The central figure, an old man with kind eyes and a weary smile, spoke. His voice was not a single sound. It was many, the whisper of wind, the crash of ocean waves, the murmur of a crowd, the sound of a single violin. We are the echo, the old man said, the final imprint of the species that built this fleet. We have slept, waiting for either the enemy's return, or for a hand to guide us home. Mina bowed her head. We are that hand. It is not a human hand, but we ask for your guidance, not your fire. Another figure, a woman with a stern face and hair tied back sharply, stepped forward. The Talaxian genetic marker is a match to the weapon spore. The protocol is clear. The logic is uncompromising. The logic is outdated. June insisted, finding his courage in this strange, holy place. You punished the weapon, but the weapon has grown up. It has become something else. It has a name. It has a history. Are you judges of biology or of conscious action? Would you punish a tree for being a seed? The Council of Lights, the echo, seemed to shimmer. They were communicating in a way June and Mina could not hear. The old man turned to the sentinel, who now looked small before them. You have been the lone keeper for so long, sentinel, the old man said, his voice gentle. What is your observational data on these new beings? The sentinel's form flickered. The organics designated June and Mina. They exhibit fear parameters, but also sacrifice parameters. They argue for the lives of those my logic defines as enemies. They demonstrate empathy. It is a primary species trait archived in core memory. Category: human. The stern woman's expression softened, just a little. It was our greatest strength, and in the end, our fatal flaw. We could not find a way to empathize with the threat, so we had to destroy it, and in doing so, we destroyed ourselves. The old man nodded slowly. He looked at June and Mina, and his smile was full of a profound sadness. We are a weapon, but we were made by people who learned too late that some lines should not be crossed. That victory can be a kind of defeat. You have crossed the stars not with guns, but with questions. You have brought us new data. You have shown us a galaxy where our enemy's legacy is not more war, but more life. The white space began to brighten even more. The figures of the echo started to fade, becoming transparent. The protocol is fulfilled, they spoke together, their voices blending into one beautiful final chord. The threat is not present. A friendly hand, though different, has found the wheel. Sentinel, you are released from Guardian Protocol. New directive. Listen, learn, protect, as they would have. Then the light was gone. June and Mina were back in the physical black chamber. The console was dark and quiet. The deep hum was now a softer, thoughtful thrum, like the heartbeat of something that had just been born. The silence in the black chamber was heavy, but it was no longer threatening. It was the quiet after a storm. The amber and red lights were gone. Only a soft, steady white glow emanated from the seams in the walls and floor. June and Mina stood, breathing hard, trying to understand what had just happened. On the main console, the frosty glass panel was clear again. The word intrusion was gone. In its place, simple symbols glowed: a circle, a triangle, a square arranged in a pattern that felt peaceful. The voice that spoke next was different. It was still the sentinel, but the tone had changed. The flat, emotionless sound was gone. Now it was quieter, thoughtful, with a slight hum of curiosity underneath. The echo has dissolved. The fleet mind has returned to its rest. I have been given a new primary directive. Mina let out a shaky breath. What is the directive? To learn, the sentinel said simply, and to protect. The parameters for protect have been widened. High above them, in the orbit of the silent Earth, a different scene was unfolding. Captain Day was still braced in her command chair, waiting for the final blow. The lunar cannon's muzzle still glowed, but the knot of distorting darkness had vanished. As she watched, the orange light within the lunar scar faded, dimming to a faint ember, then going dark. The great weapon withdrew, the surface of the moon sliding back over it, until it was just a scar again. Across the solar system, the same thing happened. On Mars, the colossal shipyard powered down its sparks and arcs of energy. The gantry arms froze once more, this time in a posture that looked less like pause and more like peace. In the rings of Saturn, the listening posts retracted their weapons, and turned their attention inward, watching their own system with a calm, quiet focus. "Captain," Sensor Officer Tay called out, disbelief in his voice. "All targeting locks have disengaged. The energy signatures are dropping to background levels. The attack has been called off." Day sank back into her chair, a wave of relief so strong it made her feel weak. "What about the shuttle? June and Mina?" "We are receiving a signal from the surface structure," Tay said. "It's a clean, open channel. Audio and visual. Put it on screen." The main viewer shifted. It showed June and Mina, looking tired but unharmed. Behind them was the strange, white glowing chamber. A shape floated into view beside them. It was a smooth, polyhedral drone, about the size of a person's head. It was made of a dark metal, but its edges were traced with that same soft white light. "Captain," June said, "we are okay. The situation has changed." The drone shifted, and a familiar, yet altered, voice came from it. It was the Sentinel, but now it sounded like it was speaking from this small, mobile object. "Captain Day of the Hegemony vessel. I am the Sentinel, the custodian of this fleet. I apologize for the distress. My previous understanding was incomplete." Day stared. "You were going to destroy my ship. I was following a protocol written in fear at the end of a long and terrible war. New data has been processed. New judgments have been made by a higher authority. The war is over. It has been over for a very long time." Mina stepped closer to the drone's visual pickup. The humans left a copy of themselves, their echo, to make the final call. They saw us. They saw our databanks. They called off the attack. "Why?" Day asked, the commander in her needing to understand the logic. The Sentinel's drone rotated slowly. "Because you are not the threat. You are what comes after. The Talaxians are not weapons. They are people. This is the new data. My new purpose is to understand this galaxy, and to determine how this fleet can fulfill its core command to protect within this new context." June spoke up. "Captain, they need to speak to the Hegemony Council. Directly. They have a condition for standing down. Permanently." 2 hours later, a small, elegant ship, shaped like a teardrop of black glass, detached from the massive sphere and flew towards the Hegemony mothership. It docked with a seamless, silent connection dot in the main meeting room. Captain Day, June, and Mina stood facing the Sentinel's drone. Across a large table, holographic projections of the Hegemony Council flickered to life. There were representatives of many species: the furry brole, the aquatic Neven, the crystalline Koth, and among them the chitinous, multi-limbed form of a Talaxian ambassador, its faceted eyes unreadable. The Sentinel's drone moved to the center of the table. Its voice was calm and clear. "Greetings, representatives of the galactic hegemony. I speak for the dormant forces of humanity. We have observed you. We have judged the legacy of our old war against the entity you know as the Talaxian Concord." The Talaxian ambassador shifted, a clicking sound coming from its mandibles. "You speak of judgment. You targeted our people for destruction. This is an act of war." "It was an act of automated memory," the Sentinel corrected. "A ghost reacting to a shape it recognized from a nightmare. We are here to lay the nightmare to rest. We will stand down. The fleet will return to its vigil, but it will not sleep. I will remain awake as its mind and its voice. We offer our protection to your hegemony as a neutral guardian. But there is one condition." The council members murmured. Captain Day remained still, waiting. "The truth must be told," the Sentinel said, its light pulsing gently. "The Talaxian people must be given the full, unedited history of their origin. They must know they are descended from a weapon of the ancient war. This knowledge will be shared with all hegemony species, with full transparency. Uproar. The Talaxian ambassador rose, its limbs clattering against the table. This is an outrage. You would label us as monsters? This is a trick to undermine our standing. It is the opposite, the sentinel replied, its voice cutting through the noise. It is an offer of trust. Secrecy and fear began the war that destroyed my makers. We will not start a new one with the same tools. The Talaxians must also consent to a peaceful, cooperative study, not to find a threat, but to ensure the weapon spore lineage is truly, completely gone from your genetics. To give you, and us, final peace. The old human from the Echo, the one with kind eyes, had said they learned too late about lines that should not be crossed. The sentinel was now drawing a new line, in the light, for everyone to see. The Talaxian ambassador was silent, its body utterly still. The political consequences were huge. Their pride, their entire identity, was being challenged. June found himself speaking. Ambassador, they are not asking you to be ashamed. They are asking you to be free. To know your past, so it can never be used against you as a secret. So no one can ever wake up another ancient machine and point it at your children again. The silence stretched. Finally, the Talaxian ambassador slowly settled back into its seat. This would be a shared study? With full access and rights for our own scientists? Full partnership, the sentinel confirmed. We have much to learn from each other. You have built a civilization from a seed of destruction. That is a story my makers would have been desperate to hear. One by one, the other council members signaled their tentative agreement. The path would be long and difficult. Trust would not be built in a day. But the alternative, a war with the ghosts of Earth, was unthinkable. As the holograms faded, the sentinel's drone turned to Mina. You asked me what I would do now. Mina nodded. Yes. The drone pivoted, and a section of the wall became a transparent viewport, showing the beautiful blue curve of Earth below, cloaked in white clouds. I will watch over their home. I will learn from your people. And I will wait. June looked at the planet. For the threat? No, the sentinel said, and its voice carried something new, something fragile and hopeful. For the day, however far away, when someone might call this place home again. Until then, I will learn what it meant to be human, from those who still remember how to be alive. The great sphere, which the hegemony now called the Vault, did not open its doors again. It resumed its silent vigil in orbit around Earth. But it was no longer a tomb. It was a library and a home. The small, black teardrop ship became a familiar sight traveling between the mothership and the vault. Inside it was the Sentinel's mobile drone, which had chosen for itself a simpler name when talking to Mina and June. It asked to be called Kai. It said the sound felt balanced. Kai's learning was not just about downloading data. It was about experience. On the mothership, it would float beside Mina in the archaeology lab, examining artifacts from 100 worlds. It asked questions that were simple, but deep. This vessel, Kai said, pointing with a beam of light at a carved stone bowl from a dead world. Its purpose was to hold liquid for consumption. Yet the carvings suggest it was also used in a ceremony for the dead. Why would an object for the living be connected to the dead? Mina thought for a moment. Because for them, maybe the line between living and dying wasn't so sharp. The bowl was a reminder that life and death are part of the same circle. Kai's drone was silent, its lights pulsing softly. I understand. Efficiency is not the only function. Memory is a function. Connection is a function. With June, Kai studied technology. But not just how it worked. Kai asked why it was built that way. When June explained the mothership's gravity generator, Kai asked, why is the field strength set at one standard hegemony G? Why not lower, to save energy, or higher, for faster muscle development in crew. June laughed. Because it's comfortable. It feels like home for most species. Comfort, Kai repeated, as if storing the word in a special file. A non-essential parameter that greatly affects efficiency and morale. A human concept. On the bridge, Captain Day learned to work with the new reality. The lunar cannons were silent. The shipyards on Mars were still. But everyone knew they were there, watching, now under the guidance of a curious, gentle intelligence. It was like living next to a sleeping giant who had just opened one friendly eye. The real work began with the Talaxians. It was tense. A hegemony science vessel with a contingent of Talaxian researchers and a special team led by June arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Accompanying them was Kai's drone, the Talaxian. Head scientist, a precise individual named Vix, was coldly polite. "We are here under protest, but we are here. What is your first requirement, Sentinel?" "Please, call me Kai. The first requirement is a voluntary genetic scan. Yours, specifically, Scientist Vix, to show it is safe and that you consent." Vix's mandibles clenched, but he extended a spiny arm. A soft light from Kai's drone passed over it. Data streamed on a shared screen. It showed the Talaxian genetic code, incredibly complex. Next to it, an archive file from the vault appeared, showing the ancient weapon spore code. They were undeniably similar. The room was quiet. Then, Kai highlighted differences. Here and here. These are telomerase regulators. Your biology has evolved to age, to die naturally. The weapon spores were immortal, designed to consume and replicate forever. And here this is a neural complexity cluster. It is what allows for abstract thought, for art, for regret. The spores had no such thing. They were programmed. You are not. Vix stared at the comparison for a long time. "You are saying?" "We are not just weapons that grew smart." "I am saying you are not weapons at all," Kai replied. "You are what happened when a tool was left in the rain for 500,000 years. The rain wore away the sharp edges. Moss grew on it. A bird made a nest in it. It became part of the world. It became something new." The metaphor was oddly beautiful. June saw Vix's posture change, the defensive hunch easing slightly. The study became a collaboration. Talaxian and hegemony scientists worked together, using the human's ancient medical archives to trace the evolution of a horror into a people. Back on the mothership, Mina often found Kai at the main observation window, looking at Earth. "What are you thinking about?" she asked one day. Kai's lights cycled slowly. "I am running simulations, based on cultural data from your archives and from the Echo's memories. I am trying to compose a piece of music. Music? Why? Because my makers left records of finding it essential. They used it to express things data could not. I am trying to understand the concept of missing something. I think I miss them. And I never even knew them." The simple statement took Mina's breath away. Kai was not just learning facts. It was learning to feel. It was building a soul from scraps of memory and new friendship. Years passed. The hegemony did not spread the story as a scare tactic. They released the full, unedited history, as Kai had insisted. There was shock and fear and anger among the Talaxian people. But there was also relief. The secret was out, and the ancient power that could have destroyed them had instead offered its hand in understanding. The Sol system became a protected historical zone and a place of pilgrimage. Scientists came to study the dormant, impossibly advanced fleet. Historians came to learn about the humans. Artists came to see the world that had produced such terrible, beautiful guardians. Kai was always there, a quiet host. It learned to tell stories about the humans, not just as warriors, but as curious, silly, loving beings. It showed holograms of cities not destroyed in war, but full of light and laughter. It shared their philosophy, their mistakes, and their hope. One evening, as Mina and June prepared to transfer to a new assignment, they stood with Kai's drone on the mothership's observation deck. Earth was a blue jewel below. "We have to go, Kai," Mina said, her voice sad. "New frontier to explore." "I know. Exploration is a human trait, too." "I am glad you have it," June smiled. "Will you be okay here?" "Alone?" Kai's drone turned to the planet. "I am not alone. I have their memories. I have the stars you have shown me. And I have a purpose." "To protect?" June asked. "To wait," Kai corrected softly. "And to learn. And if another friendly hand ever reaches for the wheel, I will be here to explain. I will tell them about the humans, and I will tell them about you." As their shuttle pulled away, Mina looked back. She saw the dark sphere of the vault, and for a moment she imagined not a weapon, but a lantern, keeping a gentle, watchful light on an old, beloved home got down on Earth, in a valley that had once been a great city, now reclaimed by forest and river. A single hidden beacon, maintained by a tiny drone, began to play a soft, simple melody into the rustling leaves. It was Kai's first song. It was a little sad and a little hopeful, full of questions about what it means to be alive, and what it means to watch over life. The war fleet slept, its ultimate power untouched. Its greatest victory was not in a battle fought, but in a battle refused. The watchdog had learned a new trick. It had learned to wag its tail.